Dogged by Michael R. Fletcher, a finalist in the SPFBO competition, might be one of the most contentious indie books I've reviewed so far, at least among readers in the Indie Fantasy Club Discord server. A bunch of us read Dogged as part of the monthly book club, and some loved it, some hated it, some couldn't finish it, so I know whatever I say in this review will receive its own criticism. So, look, let's get messy with it.
Writing advice.
Before we dive into the ratings, what's the story? Dogged Determination. Yes, that's actually the character's name. A bred for battle war dog loses her mate in a brutal portal accident and then for some reason gets sent to investigate the incident, even though she's super naive, has no investigative skills whatsoever, and doesn't even know where to start. So, alright, let's start the critiques. Now, I will say, I don't understand why some people are calling this book near perfect, but I do understand why some rate it so highly. Straight up, I give the world building in Dogged a mind-blowing 4.5 out of 5. There's a deep world beneath the story's surface, and there are a bunch of different orders that practice different types of magic. We've got wizards, sorcerers, elementalists, and the big one, demonologists, which do play a huge part in the story. They're able to bind demons from other realities to serve certain functions. One of the most compelling aspects of the magic system is magic requires sacrifice. For example, wizards take a long time to restore their, what's it called? Whatever the universe's equivalent of mana is, I don't remember. The sorcerers need to sacrifice their own vitality to do magic. Elementalism and demonology are complex practices. My point is, magic doesn't come cheaply or easily. Practitioners do need to pay the price. I won't go too deep into each class, but placing limitations on power opens up more space for tense and creative storytelling. Dogged herself is loyal to the Demon Emperor, a demonologist who rules the land and many other lands or realities, some interesting lore there. And there's some compelling world building around his conquest and rule, but it's not the primary focus here. In this story, you're fed enough info to wonder, who are the baddies? Plenty of grey areas to get lost in. The entire world is filtered through Dogged's perspective, so details get trickled through as the story progresses, which mostly works well. There's no information overload. If anything, the lack of information is a bit of a problem. The unknowns about the wider world can detract from your understanding around what's happening within this story. Even some of the characters and factions important to the story seem to have a limited understanding of the world building and the world they live in, and it's not entirely clear why people who should know things don't know things. Yet there are some inconsistencies and possibly contradictions, but overall, Dogged contains some top tier world building, almost as good as it gets. What about characters? At its core, Dogged is a character exploration story. A huge amount of focus is on Dogged herself, developing her character, showcasing her unique dog-like traits, often at the cost of making other characters feel less real and less believable, which is why I give characters a firm 4 out of 5. Great overall, but it's really Dogged herself who brings the rating up. The author does a great job of capturing how a sentient, semi-intelligent dog would probably behave. Dogged is loyal, naive, forgetful, simple in many ways. She's almost childlike and tends to live in the moment. Her dog-like traits come through in almost every scene and interaction. She's mechanical when it comes to killing, but if you give a dog a bone, she'll give you her loyalty, as long as you smell right. Scent is a big part of Dogged's perspective, and she'll often notice the scent of something before any other senses come into play. Without giving too much away, Dogged has a strong and compelling character arc and a natural development that takes place over the course of the story. At the start, she's very much the brainwashed, radicalized soldier, but you begin to see that mindset shift as she gets to know certain people and finds new sources of purpose. Like a dog, her loyalty to her masters is strong, and there's some internal conflict there when those loyalties come into question and her path takes her in a direction she didn't anticipate. As the story repeats many times, War dogs are born to die. They're a purpose driven species, and that comes through in Dogged's character. Let's talk the supporting cast. Sagaria, the kennel master, essentially the War Dog's direct master, gets some nice characterization at the start, and even though she doesn't get a lot of page time, you get a strong sense of her character and the reciprocated loyalty she feels towards the War Dogs. We also get some insight into Dogged's mate, Vigilant Aggression. Yes, once again, that's actually the character's name, although we mostly get to know him through Dogged's memories. He's a constant companion at her side. Not literally, he's dead, but Dogged's memory of him and the things he used to say help her on her journey. Speaking of being literal, and this makes the book tough to critique in many ways because it's hard to tell sometimes what's intentional and what's not, but early in the story, Dogged mentions how she doesn't understand or appreciate figurative language. People should just say what they mean. But later, it's shown that she does sometimes think in figurative language, which seems like a contradiction. Is it a deliberate contradiction? That's the question. Is her slip into thinking more figuratively meant to show that she's becoming more human? I thought that at first, but it doesn't seem to carry through the story strongly enough to cement that idea. The Emperor's advisor, Neil, whatever, is also, he's a confusing character. He sends Dogged on her mission, but doesn't really indicate why he's sending her. He doesn't even want to know what she plans to do. Yeah, whatever, do your thing. Even though investigating portal collapses is far from her thing. As the story progresses, Neil's actions make even less sense. It feels like you're meant to know something about the character or situation to understand his motivations, and there are some hints, but I couldn't grasp the meaning behind his actions on the first read through because I assumed the expected payoffs would come. Maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention to the clues. Yeah, I don't know if I'm missing information because, look, to fully understand a book, I do believe you need to read it more than once. But in this case, it may be that certain aspects of the story are deliberately vague, which on the surface can look like plot holes or lazy writing. Anyway, my main issue with the characters is the, what would you even call them? The enemies are all written to be the most comically incompetent people imaginable. I can understand them underestimating Dogged once, but fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 10 times while I refuse to learn from my mistakes. Well, now you've got questionable characters who seem to exist solely to push the plot and our protagonist in a specific direction. Overall, Dogged alone is almost a 5-star character. The character work and Dogged's character arc are top notch. They fit the story, the setting, the situation perfectly. Her companions also become an important part of her progression. It's just, yeah, there's a lot of plot convenient incompetence from their adversaries. Sometimes from her companions as well, come to think of it. Anyway, moving on. That brings us to storytelling, which I give a. This might be the toughest category to rate. It usually is. I give storytelling a tentative 3.5 out of 5. It's good, but due to all the, like I said, plot convenient incompetence, which gets old after a while, I can't say it's great overall. I will say the underlying sense of mystery and intrigue thread nicely into Dogged's journey, and we get some answers as the story progresses. You know, she's all about her answers, that's her mission, and she's got that dogged determination to see it through. There are plenty of genuinely tense moments, and conflict is written well. Dogged's internal conflict, she's frequently faced with tough decisions, and external, she gets into a few scuffles. There are plenty of twists and turns, and I actually thought the book was foreshadowing a different ending. So, look, I know some people don't like the ending. I'm actually okay with it because it does make sense in the context of the plot and the character's progression. But we are missing one big answer, the answer to the one big question, the one big decision that started Dogged's entire journey. Not her mate's death, but the mission she is given. Minor spoiler for something that doesn't happen, but I feel like I'm missing something here. Because the author hints, at times, there's a compelling reason for Neil sending Dogged on her mission and essentially giving her unlimited authority and resources to carry it out. But in the context of the wider story, it doesn't make sense. Am I actually missing something here? Because in the grand scheme, Doggett seems unimportant, but she's not treated that way. This next one is tough to discuss without spoilers, but let's just say opposing characters tend to treat Doggett in whatever way seems convenient to the plot. If the plot demands an action scene, they want her dead. If the plot demands she escape an impossible situation, suddenly she's too valuable to kill, and of course the baddies conveniently leave her a way out. There's just a lot of back and forth convenience and contradiction. The plot works as part of a character exploration narrative, it's great, but it's not the story's biggest strength. That brings us to writing, which I give a solid 3.5 out of 5. It's good, simple prose, which makes sense for a simple character, and we get a bigger focus on scent when it comes to description. It's a sense many authors neglect, so it is refreshing to see it come into focus here. There are plenty of insightful lines, especially around human behavior. It's interesting to get that almost alien perspective on some of our actions and behaviors. Interestingly, because Doggett struggles to assign meaning to certain behaviors and actions, the author is forced to show and not tell for a lot of the time, which is also refreshing. Everything's filtered through the character's somewhat narrow perspective or understanding. In parts, however, the lack of detail becomes a problem, and I don't know, sometimes it feels like words are missing or steps are missing, and I had to stop to try to visualize exactly what's happening in certain scenes. Some moments are very abrupt, like when Doggett first spots her mate after his death. This is right at the start. Apparently, he has a very recognizable back, easily picked out among a red swamp of blood and gore. It's just put out there so casually as if disembodied backs are common. Maybe they are to war dogs, but not to me. Oh, right. Okay, I get it. He's actually had his entire back removed. Okay, so I don't see that often. Yeah, okay, I get it now. I just don't feel like you can breeze past that imagery. Basically, there were parts where I had to stop and reread to make sense of exactly what was happening, and a little more detail would have removed those stumbling blocks. There are some abrupt moments in general where the writing doesn't flow naturally from moment to moment, and it does feel like steps are missing. It's like, we're here, now we're here, and this and there, and then John was a zombie. No, it's not that bad, but I don't think I can put all the abruptness and missing info down to perspective. Occasionally, the natural narrative flow does fall away. I've already discussed the inconsistencies and contradictions in Doggett's character, but sometimes she does use language that doesn't match her character, like when she speaks in figurative language or uses big words like fastidious. It's hard to know what's intentional and what's not, but on the surface, these look like contradictions. The prose overall it's clean, but some sentences could be stronger. One example, though outwardly calm, I smelled their fear. In this line, Doggett is saying the people she's passing are outwardly calm, and you get that in context, but in the flow of reading, it initially reads like it's saying she's outwardly calm, and I stumbled on it because it's like, no, she's inwardly calm. What's going on here? Generally, in a sentence like this, the dependent clause, though outwardly calm, would connect to the subject of the sentence, I, that is Doggett. But it doesn't. It doesn't even connect to the object, their fear. Though their fear was outwardly calm, I smelled it. It's actually referring to the subject, the people in the previous sentence. Why the separation? Quick fix, just say, though they were outwardly calm, I could smell their fear. No confusion, it's clear who's calm and who's not. I can read the sentence and move on with my life. I know it's nitpicky stuff and you do get the meaning through context, but ideally, complete sentences should stand on their own. Every time a sentence like that popped up, it was like a little stumbling block, and all those little stumbles add up after a while. That's why I enjoy audiobooks, because this sort of stuff just slides on by for the most part. For whatever reason, this book requires you to make a lot of assumptions or deductions, maybe, not just at the plot level, but also at the sentence level. Look, overall, the prose is decent, easy reading, the occasional stumbling block, but no deal breakers. That brings us to my overall enjoyment, which I give a 3.5 Out of 5. I thoroughly enjoyed the character exploration aspect of the story, and I think Dogged as a character, her personality, her character arc are brilliantly executed. Seriously, top notch character work overall. My main enjoyment issues are the seemingly forced plot progression, convenience, incompetence, pure coincidence are used a little too much for my liking, and the lack of answers and payoffs at the end make me feel like I'm missing something. It's like, here's the call to adventure. Why am I being called to adventure? Ah, don't worry about it. Without those strong plot points within the narrative, the character angle started to wear thin for me. I prefer the full package. Yes, have great character work, but that doesn't mean you can't also have a strong plot. Oh well, apparently it does. Anyway, that leaves Dogged with a final score of 3.8 out of 5. Better than good, almost great. I can see why it's done so well in the SPF 30 plus sunscreen competition. I don't know their rating criteria, but maybe they're rating higher based on creativity or some other factor, because it is a super creative concept and character. Look, if you're a fan of character exploration stories, you might enjoy Dogged more than I did. You might devour the entire novel, figuratively, with dogged determination. When I read the blurb, for several reasons, I thought, there's no way this book can be good. I mean, come on, it looks like the author started writing a blurb, made sure to include the main character's ridiculous name, then forgot to finish writing the blurb. Anyway, the book's good. Congrats to Michael R. Fletcher for making the finals. It's a big achievement. I wouldn't mind reading a few more finalists to get a better idea of the landscape, but some on the list are even more outwardly questionable than Dogged. Yeah, could be fun. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. If you didn't enjoy this video, hit subscribe anyway and hate watch my content. That's always fun.